Got another one here from Will Morris. Thank you for the super chat, Will. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Will Morris writes, I believe that if you build a team the right way, you don't need a great quarterback. See Gibbs 1. None of the three were superstars, not by a long shot, just competent. Ron's plan. The only thing I say to that, Will, and you're right about Gibbs 1.0, he won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. Here's the problem. Those days are gone, long gone. Okay, Will? And I made that point earlier where I said this isn't 1989. You can't win despite your quarterback anymore. And not to say that those guys were hindrances. You know, Doug Williams at the time of that Super Bowl set a Super Bowl record for the most touchdowns, passes in a quarter. That probably is still active right now. It may be, it may not be. We've had so many explosive Super Bowls, you know, with the 49ers and the Cowboys in the 90s that they may have shattered that by now. But Joe Theismann was once a league MVP. The year that we didn't win the Super Bowl, when we lost to the Raiders, he was the league MVP. So it's not like those guys are trash. It just happened to be 3 different guys. And Rippon threw the hell out of the deep ball in 91. Better than any other quarterback. However, those guys, as you mentioned, except with the exception of Theismann, I thought Theismann was outstanding. Again, you don't win the league MVP by accident. Outside of Theismann, none of those guys were exceptional. However, that was a different era. You could play defense, you could run the football, and you could win games like that. I mean, how many games a season are you expected to win 13-10, 20-13? Not many. Not in this age of football. Not in this era. You know? It doesn't happen very often. You've got to be able to score points, and your quarterback has to be able to make plays. Just look at all the quarterbacks that are winning Super Bowls, man. It's not a mistake. It's not by accident that Tom Brady leaves the Patriots, goes to a Buccaneers team that hasn't won more than 8 games since 2000 and probably, I don't know, 10 maybe? 2010, 11? And they win a Super Bowl in the first year. That's not on accident. They had talent. They just didn't have the quarterback. Go look at all the Super Bowl winning teams of the last decade and a half. It's the same guys over and over again. Even the teams that lost the Super Bowl either had a quarterback that was phenomenal or they had a quarterback that had a phenomenal season. You could throw Jared Goff in there. He had a phenomenal year in 2018. Say what you want about Jared Goff. Go look at his numbers from that season. He was ridiculous. Jimmy Garoppolo in 19. That's the exception to the rule. That's the exception to the rule. And they still lost. And there was a play that was there to be made with the game on the line, and he didn't make it. But again, you go through there, Matt Ryan in 16 losing to Tom Brady. League MVP that year. You could say, what about Nicholas Foles? He was playing out of his gourd. And guess what? He had to outduel Tom Brady in that Super Bowl. That wasn't a 27-23 Super Bowl. That was 43-39 or whatever it was. He had to outduel Tom Brady. A quarterback that nobody expected to do what he did had to outduel the greatest quarterback of all time. You can't get away with subpar quarterback play and win a Super Bowl. Nicholas Foles was playing out of his gourd during that whole stretch of playoff ball. So, while you feel like Gibbs 1.0, you were able to get by with competent quarterbacking, and when that's not what we in anymore. That's not the era we live in anymore. The game has changed. It's an offensive game, and the rules are skewed to help the offense in every way imaginable. And if your quarterback can't take advantage of the rules being skewed towards helping him, you're not going to win big in this league. You can make it to the playoffs. You may even win a game or two. You will not win a Super Bowl. Not if your quarterback isn't playing at a high level. You don't have to have an elite quarterback. Your quarterback has to be playing elite, though. One or the other. Either you have to have an elite quarterback or he has to be playing at an elite level. That's what we've seen. Because if that quarterback that's not elite gets there and he doesn't play elite, you're going to lose. Case in point, Jared Goff. Case in point, Jimmy Garoppolo. They may be able to get you there. You're not going to win if they're not playing at an elite level. So, I said all of that to say this. You can't get away with subpar quarterback or average or mediocre quarterback or just competent quarterbacking anymore. This ain't the 2000 Ravens with Trent Dilfer. Those days are long gone, and they're never, ever coming back again. Never. Thank you for the super chat, Will Morris. Got another one here from DCJ. Thank you for tripling up. Might be your fourth. Thank you tripling up here, DCJ. Greatly appreciate you as always. My guy, DCJ, writes, that's why I think Ron made clear today quarterback comp ahead. Well, I think he reiterated that simply because he said before they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick, one of the biggest mistakes he made last year was that there was no quarterback competition. Albeit it was a shortened offseason, it was tough in that environment to foster a culture that was going to be able to have a fair quarterback competition. It just was going to be tough last year with the circumstances being what they were. However, he pretty much gave Dwayne the job. Dwayne came in. He said, I need you to show leadership. I need you to show up early, leave late. Dwayne did all of those things in the offseason, but once the regular season got underway, he fell back into old habits. He wasn't the first guy in. He wasn't the last to leave. He wasn't putting in the work. He wasn't doing the things that Rivera needed to see from him. And he felt like that was one of the places where he dropped the ball, was he just gave Dwayne the job and he didn't make him earn it. He said, this year I'm not going to make that same mistake. We're going to have a competition. There isn't one quarterback on the roster that is heads and shoulders above the rest, so we're going to have a competition. And when Taylor Heinicke signed his deal, the first thing Heinicke said after signing his deal is that I talked to Ron, and he reassured me that I was going to have a chance to compete for the starting job this year. That was before they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick, mind you. But still, Ryan Fitzpatrick shouldn't be able to come into any situation and demand to be the starter, nor should he walk in and be the unquestioned starter, which is kind of what's going on right now. However, Heinicke is making it known that I'm not conceding anything. And Ron is acknowledging that, hey, I said it was a competition. I'm sticking to my word, even though the competition may be a little one-sided and it may be somewhat tilted towards Fitzpatrick. It's a competition nonetheless. Ron had already said that the pecking order was, Fitzpatrick won and everybody else fall in line behind and figure out a way to work your way up. But does it mean that he's locked in? It's not etched in stone. He could easily find himself backing up come week one. Highly unlikely, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. So I think Ron just wanted to reiterate, hey, I said it was going to be competition. I messed up last year. I just want y'all to know it's competition. Even if in his head it's not, he still needs to say that verbally for everybody to be able to digest. So we'll see about that competition. We'll see. Thank you for the super chat, DCJ. Alonzo Yarborough. Thank you for the super chat, Alonzo Yarborough, who writes, greatly appreciate you, Lonzo. My guy Zoe writes, who is the better quarterback, Fitz or Mark Rippon? Who has the better offensive weapons and D, present or 92 skins? Why can't we win a Super Bowl without an elite quarterback? quarterback because the game is played differently, Alonzo. And that's what I've been stressing. When that was brought up earlier, and I forget who exactly brought it up, but the game isn't the same as it was in the early 90s. The rules have changed. It benefits the offense. You can't do the things you used to do. It's just a different game that is centered around the quarterback. The game, think about this. Who used to be the most popular players back in the day? Go back to the 60s. You know who the most popular players were? The running backs. Okay? Running backs ruled the NFL into the 70s. Okay? You know, Jim Brown. Think about all the Hall of Fame, game-changing trendsetters at the running back position. Gale Sayers and Jim Brown. And then you head into the 70s, and it's O.J. Simpson. And it's all of these running backs that we talk about that were great. Walter Payton. And then you get into the 80s, and it's Earl. And Earl Campbell was in the 70s as well. And he's one of the most underrated running backs, I think, in NFL history. And then you get into the 80s. And it's more Walter Payton, but now it's Barry Sanders, and it's this Eric Dickerson and this new wave of running backs. But they were always the stars, right? Then you get Emmitt Smith and all those guys into the 90s, right? So the running back position is what ruled the day. You could win with Emmitt Smith rushing for 1,500 yards, Troy Aikman managing the game. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. Don't disrespect Troy. One of the most accurate passers in NFL history. But he was taking a back seat to the offensive line and Emmitt Smith in Dallas. Everything in Dallas in the early 90s went through the run game with Emmitt Smith in that offensive line. And off of that, you got Troy Aikman being able to get the football to Michael Irvin and Alvin Harper and all of those guys. That's how that worked. That's not how the NFL works anymore. Hey, go get you 2,000 yards. Derrick Henry had 2,000 yards last year. Doesn't make one bit of difference when you get to the playoffs and Ryan Tannehill can't get you over the hump. Sorry, not sorry. And it wasn't all his fault. They didn't have a ton of weapons out there at receiver, but that's nor here nor there. The bottom line is, it doesn't matter. Derrick Henry he rushed for 2K last year. They didn't get out in the first round. Now, the defense wasn't great, but they were awesome in that first game. Awesome. They should not have lost that game, but they did. Why? Because they didn't get enough from the quarterback position. That's why. You can't win in this league like that anymore. Look at all the teams with dynamic running backs. What are they doing? Dalvin Cook's one of the best running backs in the league. I know y'all going to blame it on Kirk. Despite Kirk having the best season of his career last year, their defense was terrible. But even if their defense was average, it probably still wouldn't have been good enough. You have to have one of two things. Either an elite quarterback or a quarterback that's playing elite. There's no way around that. There just isn't. The game isn't set up anymore for you to be able to win with a dominant run game, outstanding defense, and mediocre to average to slightly above average quarterback play. You can win games in this league with that. You can win 10, 11 games, 12 games with that. But when everybody's good in the postseason, see, you're going to run into some clowns in the regular season. You're going to feast off of the bad teams, and you're going to beat them up with a dominant defense and a ground game that won't quit and a quarterback that's taking advantage of that. You're going to win 10, 11, 12 games with that formula. But then when you get in the playoffs and everybody is scoring 30 plus or capable of it, and you bring your run game in there, and you're like, hey, we in the building. We ready to stomp with the big dogs. And they looking at you like, you see these clowns with their little 27.7 points a game? And they run game? They think they're going to come in the playoffs with that bullshit? And then get 37 put on their skull, and then what are they supposed to do? Because that's Mahomes. or it's Watson, or it's Rodgers, or it's Brady, or it's Roethlisberger. And you get one of these dudes that get hot, that's elite, and they stroke your ass. Then what do? It turns into because once they score 21 unanswered, your run game, that shit is in the garbage at this point. Now your quarterback has to will you back into the game. And if you got a mediocre quarterback, I can tell you this, Mark Rippon wasn't winning shootouts in 91. Okay? He didn't have to. It was a different game. We could run it. You could win a game 13-3 in those days. You make two really good passes. We were getting our ass whooped against the Giants in that 91 season. At halftime, I want to say the score was 13-0. Getting our ass lambasted on the road at the Giants. I want to say it was a Sunday night game, too. Rippon made 2 passes in the second half of that game. That's it. 2 passes. We won the game. I think we won the game 14-13 or 17-13. One of the two. You can't do that anymore, man. You can't win games that way anymore. You don't get to make 2 passes and win games anymore. Your quarterback is going to have to make plays throughout a game. And that's not even considering if they're playing against another elite quarterback, which is going to happen in the postseason. There's going to come a time where you're going to have to say, hey, we down 3 scores. Hey, we need you to bring us back. You didn't have to really do that back in 91. That's the climate we're in now. It's the reason why no one thinks Lamar Jackson can win. Is because, hey, you can do all of that running around, rambling, scrambling shit during the regular season. That's fun, that's cute, that's nice. Can win you an MVP because it already did for Lamar Jackson. But when it becomes playoff time, shit gets tight. And you playing against Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Not Ryan Tannehill, which they were able to get by in the first round. Now you playing against Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. Run that shit back. Do that same shit you was doing on the train last week. Do that shit on the train you was doing last week. That running around shit. Nah, you got to throw it now. Because Mahomes and company, they scoring 31. Can you score 31? And can you do it with your arm? Because they made a concerted effort to say, hey, you're not doing that running, rambling, scrambling shit. And not to say that Lamar Jackson is mediocre, but he's got to figure that out. He's going through that process right now. And he's an MVP. So I said all of that to say this. You have, and I've said this already, and I'm going to reiterate it because I think a lot of you have to understand this. You either have to have an elite quarterback or a quarterback that is playing elite. One or the other. There were times last year where Tom Brady wasn't elite. In the playoffs, there were times where Tom Brady wasn't elite. But damn it, when the game was on the line, he gave them everything they needed. He struggled in the second half against the Packers in the NFC Championship game after scorching those boys in the first half. He was elite in the first half. Anything but through a quarter and a half of the second half. Three straight interceptions. But when the game was on the line and they needed it, what did he do? He got a couple of first downs. Game, set, match. Everybody drive home safely. We going to the Super Bowl. He wasn't spectacular in the Super Bowl. The defense was. They ran it effectively. But you know what he also did in that Super Bowl? Man, he managed the shit out of the game. And when guys were open, he got it to them. He did not miss. Go look at his numbers in the Super Bowl. Not a whole bunch of yards. Nothing to write home about. But boy, that completion percentage, he made every right decision. Oh, you going to lead a running back over? Boop. I'm going to hit him. Oh, you going to leave my tight end open? Boop. I'm going to hit him. He was an elite decision maker in the Super Bowl. He wasn't great against the Saints. Hell, you could argue the defense won them that game. But you know what happened when they were down big and the defense created a turnover? Tom said, I got it from here. No. I got it from here. Don't worry about it. He took over. Yeah, he was struggling. But then that elite gene kicked in and he got those boys to victory. So, again, because this is like the third time someone said, but hey, we did it before. This ain't 91. Okay? I cannot stress this enough. Nobody thinks that Joe Flacco is elite, right? We can all agree on that, right? Joe Flacco. My guy Joe. Cool. He ain't elite. But in 2011, his ass was playing elite football when they won the Super Bowl. Or 2012. He went 11-0 in that postseason. You don't have to be elite, but you better be playing some elite ball or you won't win. And he had to be elite. You know why? Colin Kaepernick. If you remember that Super Bowl, the Ravens were destroying the 49ers. The lights went out. And then all of a sudden, here comes the damn 49ers. Here comes Colin Kaepernick. And it turned into a shootout. And Joe Flacco had to perform. Or else they would have lost the game. So I can't stress this enough. It's a different game. The last team we saw win a Super Bowl without an elite quarterback was the 2015 Broncos. Peyton Manning was literally on his last legs in that Super Bowl. He had nothing for him. He had nothing left to give. That defense was so dominant. I think that 2015 Broncos defense is the best defense I've seen since the 2002 Bucks. I said that in a moment. Like when we talk about best defenses ever, they're in the category. They're not at the top of that list. They're not second or third or fourth or fifth. But they're in the discussion. They're in the top 7. They were dominant of the last 30 years, 40 years of defenses in this league. I ain't talking about the 60s and the purple people eaters. And I didn't see that shit. I'm talking about the defenses of the last 30, 40 years. They're in that discussion. When people want to bring up the 85 Bears, they're in a class by themselves. And then you start talking Ravens of the 2000 variety and then Bucks in the 2002 season. Those 15 Broncos are right there. You can win a Super Bowl with that kind of defense. That ain't us. At least not yet. Now, we may eventually get there, but that ain't us right now. If we get to that point, then we may be able to come back and have this conversation that we're having right now. But even then, that's extremely hard. Even then, that's extremely hard. But we've seen what elite defense will do to an elite quarterback. See last year's Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes. Granted, they were missing 3/5 of their offensive line. Don't care. Don't care. That's not their problem. They just dominated. But, again, in order to win, elite quarterback or a quarterback that's playing elite. I don't make the rules. I just abide by them. Thank you for the super chat, Alonzo Yarborough.